An Italian mobster's amazing obsession. Discover the unexpected purity of a young nun revealed. Giovanni, the hammer, Mancini paced the cracked pavement of the rundown alley, his reputation painted in blood and betrayal. He was a force in Chicago's criminal underworld, known for ruthlessness and cold efficiency. Yet tonight, his thoughts festered like an untreated wound, gnawing at him with a relentless emptiness. This life, a twisted collage of loyalty and violence, began to feel like a cage. The faces of those he had wronged haunted him, a parade of memories that mocked the short-lived thrill of power. As he roamed deeper into the city, he stumbled upon an old church, its walls crumbling, windows shattered. Inside, he found Sister Elena, her laughter a startling contrast to the decay surrounding her. She illuminated the lost space with her unyielding spirit. Each child that entered the church seemed to find comfort within her. Giovanni felt drawn to that light, a flicker of something he hadn't dared to hope for purity. In her presence, the clamoring outside faded, the alley's whispers of treachery softened. Unable to resist, Giovanni became a fixture at the church. With every visit, he saw her vigor, her laughter, dedicated to lifting the children from the shadows. The choice to linger there felt like a seduction, a welcome distraction from a life marked by betrayal. She needs my help, he convinced himself, the internal conflict brewing just beneath the surface. Was he there to protect her, or was he captivated, sinking into an obsession that contradicted his very being? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But that light was now under threat. Rumors buzzed like hornets. A rival gang had set their sights on the church, recognizing it as a vulnerable target. Giovanni battled the panic rising in his chest. Protecting Sister Elena was now more than an inclination, it bordered on necessity. Yet, a chill gripped his spine with the realization that standing up for her would pit him against those he swore loyalty to, the family that raised him, the life he had built. He stared into the shadows of his future, each option curling into a battle of moral dilemmas. Could he sacrifice everything for someone he barely knew? The thought of turning away from blood ties flashed before him like neon lights against the darkened sky, jarring and enticing. But to walk into the light would mean letting go of his past, and that felt like an insurmountable risk. As the night loomed closer, Giovanni felt desperation settle in. The street buzzed with foreboding, rival gang tensions simmering just beneath the surface. Could he endure the consequences of a world he desperately wanted to step away from? Every choice shrouded in peril tightened the noose around his heart. The oppressive weight of his life pressed against him, a storm ready to unleash its fury. Standing outside the church, he took a deep breath, the air heavy with impending conflict. Looking up at the crumbling steeple, he felt time freeze. The struggle between light and dark bore down on him. Tomorrow would bring confrontation, a judgment day where he must choose. Would he stand with the family he had known all his life, or embrace the shimmer of hope Sister Elena represented? The darkness crept closer, and with it, the stakes rose. The streets of Chicago turned sinister in anticipation. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a sullen shadow across Giovanni's heart. As he layered on the facade of indifference, a tumult of emotions raced through him, each more vicious than the last. He had always been a man adept at masking his vulnerabilities under waves of bravado, but the calm exterior he had meticulously curated began to fracture. The relentless internal struggle gnawed at him, morphing his thoughts into a chaotic storm. Sister Elena's image loomed in his mind, her gentle smile fueling his resolve. She was unlike anyone he had ever encountered. Her purity stood defiant against the grime of the world he inhabited. Giovanni felt the thin thread of connection grow tighter, bordering on desperate. The laughter of children echoed in his ears, a stark contrast to the venomous whispers of his underworld associates. A barrage of contradictions filled him, the chance for redemption flickered against the dark backdrop of his criminal life. Determined to shield her light, Giovanni gathered intel on the rival gang poised to strike. The more he found out, the clearer the stakes became. They were ruthless and the sort of monsters he had fought beside, familiar with violence that left no survivors. The thought of confrontation sent tremors through his muscles. A decision loomed larger than life, demanding action. How could he confront demons of his own creation? Should he even bother stepping into chaos one last time for a chance at the right path? Wrestling with his choices, he recalled past decisions that had led him deeper into the abyss, a life riddled with regret. Each betrayal echoed in the cavernous silence of his mind, a reminder of the man he had been, not the one he yearned to be. The criminals he had upheld since childhood now became chains, heavy and rusted, binding him to his past. Yet the burden of those memories ignited a flicker of hope. Perhaps he could create an alternative path, one not forged in the flames of ruin. Giovanni turned toward the church, the sanctuary of his newfound purpose. The flickering light within was a beacon calling him to action. He needed to protect Sister Elena, not just for her but for himself. Every moment spent in her presence had begun to peel back the layers of cynicism he had wrapped around himself like armor. It was paradoxical, the mobster seeking salvation in a place soaked in innocence. He realized the stakes were inextricably entwined with his identity. Could he really claim redemption while standing against the family who had molded him? The blood running through his veins was a brackish reminder of loyalty. Torn between two opposing worlds, he weighed the costs with metaphoric scales as the night deepened. War was brewing in the streets, and every decision reshaped his destiny. With resolve morphing into action, Giovanni grabbed a piece of cracked concrete from the ground, the weight of it symbolic of his transformation. Its rough edges mirrored his tumultuous past, yet, as he approached the church, it represented the fight he now had to undertake. The moment felt charged with betrayal and potential. Embracing the grit of street wisdom he had amassed, he knew he had to be strategic. The chill crept back, the wind carrying secrets of disloyalty and violence around him. Tomorrow would be a volatile reckoning, blending danger with possibility as he prepared to reach a critical decision. Sister Elena needed him to be more than a specter of his past. He needed to confront not just the rival gang but also the deepest fears of his convictions. The shadows lengthened, and the end of tonight brushed against the horizon of a chaotic dawn. Giovanni's heart echoed with the steady thrum of determination, yet uncertainty loomed. What would his path reveal when the light unveiled the truths he had long buried? There was no turning back now, it was time to act. Yet, in the depths of his heart, he couldn't shake the feeling that this battle would test everything he thought he knew about loyalty, strength, and ultimately, love. The moment approached, and he understood that he would either stride into tomorrow as a protector or be engulfed in a darkness he feared more than death itself. The crucible awaited. As dawn broke, Giovanni felt the weight of expectation thrumming in his chest, a drumbeat heralding a day that could alter the trajectory of his life. He stood outside the sturdy doors of the church, their rough wood imbued with secrets he had come to respect. The air was thick with uncertainty, yet every breath he took felt like a cleansing ritual, an affirmation that he was still capable of change. Redemption had not fled from him entirely. The precarious balance between his two lives, one steeped in darkness, the other striving for the light, pressed upon him like a vice. Each stroke against the heart of his loyal past sent ripples of anxiety through his body, awakening the ghosts of those he had wronged. Would he be strong enough to claim the man he envisioned, or would the shadows suffocate him with their familiarity? He took a step forward, the crunch of gravel beneath his feet echoing in the silence of the morning. Giovanni considered his motives, protecting Sister Elena, yes, but also confronting the deeper fissures of his identity. This awakening of purpose stoked a flame within, yet doubt lingered like smog. What if his efforts to fend off the rival gang only drew them closer, embroiling Elena in the very chaos he sought to escape? As the sun ascended, casting golden light through the stained glass, he felt the spirit of the church wrap around him, infusing him with hope. Inside, Sister Elena tended to the altar, her soft hum soothing the spaces of Giovanni's turmoil. She turned, her eyes meeting his, and in that moment, he felt seen not as a mobster but as a man capable of love, hope, and change. "What troubles you, Giovanni?" she asked, her voice like a balm against his fraying nerves. Despite the turmoil simmering within, he hesitated. For years, Giovanni had been trained to never reveal his vulnerabilities, yet here she stood an unyielding lighthouse. He dropped his eyes, contemplating the truth that loomed behind his silence. Could he risk baring the heavily armored heart, the one that had survived countless storms? "I'm afraid," he acknowledged, his voice barely a whisper. "Afraid for you, for what tomorrow holds." Sister Elena stepped closer, reaching out to place a hand on his arm. "Fear can be a guide, Giovanni. It shows us what we truly care for. But be mindful not to let it chain you. You have the strength to choose a different path." Her words pierced through the fog that had clouded his mind. She spoke not of physical might but of inner resolve. Was he wise enough to harness that strength? The compelling gravity of his love for her pushed him toward a decision. If love could sculpt a new fate, then he might wield fear not as a shackle but as a catalyst. Giovanni straightened, a burgeoning determination igniting within him. He would devise a plan, one that called upon the very skills he had honed in the gritty underbelly of his world. This time, however, it would not be to perpetuate destruction but to safeguard the light he had found. But as he prepared to articulate his intentions, a sharp shriek of tires screeching against asphalt tore through the morning calm. Giovanni and Sister Elena exchanged a glance, an unspoken agreement passing between them. His life of chaos was encroaching on her serenity more rapidly than he had anticipated. Giovanni bolted to the door, panic flooding his mind. What if this was the beginning of an assault? Would he be forced to choose between preserving his old life and saving the one person who had ignited hope within him? In that moment, he understood the ultimate test lay ahead, a confrontation not just with the men he once allied with, but with the echoes of the man he thought he had left behind. What tribulations awaited him today would be trials by fire. He had locked the door to his past, but had he the ability to protect the keys to his future? As the sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the street, Giovanni braced himself for the chaos that was coming with the dawn. A storm was brewing, and this time, he could not afford to lose. The footsteps grew louder, reverberating through the stillness of the morning. Giovanni's heart raced, the rhythm quickening under the weight of impending danger. His mind was a battlefield, each thought colliding with the next as fear clawed at his resolve. What if the gang was more relentless than he anticipated? What if the moment he had been dreading was finally upon him? "Stay back," Giovanni whispered urgently to Sister Elena as he stepped closer to the door. He had spent his life mastering the art of intimidation. Now, he needed that same fervor to shield her from harm. If he was to embrace the principles of redemption, he had to find a way to protect her without compromising the progress he had made. He reflected on Sister Elena's words. Fear could indeed be a guide, but in this moment, it also felt like a paralyzing weight. He had faced threats in the shadows of alleyways and the dark corners of nightclubs, yet this felt different. This was about more than his own survival. It was about safeguarding the innocence that shone like a beacon in the depths of his tumultuous past. Giovanni flung open the door, bracing himself for a confrontation. Outside, he was met with the unexpected. A lone figure stood at the foot of the stairs, breathless but unarmed. Marco, a former associate, one he thought had left their life behind, entirely gazed up at Giovanni with urgency. "Giovanni! You need to listen!" Marco implored, his eyes darting to the church interior. "It's about the ratios, they want to stop. They think you're still one of them. They're coming for you, not just you, but everything you care about." A jolt of recognition coursed through Giovanni, the name flooded with old associations that sent shivers down his spine. The ratios were notorious for their ruthlessness, notorious for annihilating anyone who stood in their way. He felt the fastidious grip of anxiety tighten around his chest. "What do you want from me, Marco?" Giovanni's voice held the weight of 100 unspoken decisions. Trust had been a rare currency in his old life, and his instincts urged caution. But he also sensed the vulnerability in Marco's expression, a call, perhaps, for solidarity. Together they could strategize against a much larger threat. There's still a way to handle it without bringing any chaos to the church. If you show them you've got the support of your old crew, it might buy you time, and keep Elena safe, Marco suggested, his desperation palpable. Giovanni's mind churned. This could be his chance to confront the dark remnants of his past and wrest control over his future. Aligning with Marco seemed like a treacherous path, yet it also illuminated the possibility of dismantling the ratios with calculated precision rather than brute force. The taste of a plan began to swirl in his mind. Before I agree to anything, Giovanni said firmly, I need to understand what's at stake. You don't know the new life I've tried to build. This isn't just a few old ties, it's about protecting something pure. Marco nodded, understanding the complexity of Giovanni's transformation. Trust me. If we don't act, they'll come and take everything you've worked for, Sister Elena, your chance at a new beginning. With a surge of conviction, Giovanni stepped aside, beckoning Marco into the sanctuary. Sister Elena observed the exchange, her presence a silent reminder of the stakes involved. Giovanni felt the ground beneath him shift. His ties to his old life weren't severed but rather woven into a new tapestry of purpose. As they moved deeper into the church, strategy replaced tension. The raw fear that had propelled Giovanni now fueled his determination. Gone were the days of simple survival. He was ready to take a stand, to confront not just the ratios but also the remnants of his past that lingered like ghosts. But little did he know, another figure lurked in the shadows, watching, planning, and prepared to exploit his every move. Giovanni was on the precipice of a decision that would either fortify his emerging identity or plunge him further into chaos. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, painting the world in foreboding shades, he prepared to face a reckoning far greater than he could fathom. The time had come to confront both his enemies and the man he had vowed to leave behind. Inside the sanctuary, the air hummed with an uneasy energy, marked by Giovanni's escalating heartbeat. He could feel the weight of Sister Elena's gaze upon him, a mixture of concern and inquiry pressing down like a heavy blanket. This wasn't just a conversation about danger anymore. This was about navigating the murky waters of his past life and the stalwart resolve he now harbored. What about the old crew? Giovanni queried, punctuating the silence with a need for clarity. Do you truly believe their backing will make a difference against the ratios? They've been restless and ruthless. I can't pull them back into my mess. Marco shifted, visibly wrestling with his own apprehensions. You know them, Giovanni. They'll respect you, especially if they think you're challenging the ratios. Fear is a powerful motivator for loyalty, and you wield it better than anyone. But this is about more than just respect, it's about survival. Giovanni clenched his fists. Memories of power and corruption danced in his mind. He declawed his way out of that world. He couldn't afford to linger at its edges, yet the stakes felt higher than ever. Sister Elena's safety hung precariously in the balance. The very notion made him reconsider the threads he would weave to protect her. What if I am wrong? He whispered, feeling the gravitational pull of doubt. The implications of such a path weighed him down. Could he really trust Marco and those men again, or had the loyalty of his past turned cold with time? You've changed, Marco replied, his voice steadied by conviction. But that doesn't mean you have to fight this alone. You still have supporters. Use that. Show them you're leading a new life not just for yourself, but for those you care about. In that moment, Giovanni experienced a transformation within himself, a flicker of potential simmering below the surface. What if he could dance along the shadows of his past while steering clear of its darkness? The thought invigorated him. All right, Giovanni said, voice now tinged with a newfound resolve. Let us craft a plan. The ratio's arrogance is their downfall. They act like gods among men. If I can exploit that, it may create the distraction I need to dismantle them from within. The intensity in Marco's eyes matched Giovanni's. We'll need to rally resources. Assemble those who owe you favors. You're going to require intelligence and strength in numbers. As Marco shared strategies and potential contacts, Giovanni's mind began to race ahead, visualizing the tangled network he previously abandoned. His past choices had molded him, They were not mere chains but rather building blocks of a complex strategy. He could leverage the unfamiliar yet potent mixture of fear and respect he commanded, but mingled with the rush of excitement was an unsettling realization. Trust would remain his greatest commodity, though he had little to spare. How could he extend it to those steeped in the shadows of his old life? Giovanni felt the tension in the church thicken with impending reckoning. The clarity he had sought flickered stubbornly, and anxiety gripped at the periphery of his thoughts. Could he truly orchestrate this delicate balance of control, using the very past he had sought to escape? As the sun's last rays cast long shadows, a figure emerged in the doorway, a silhouette Giovanni recognized instinctively. A face from his past, both familiar and unsettling. Who had come to watch? Who else would seek to exploit the fraying edges of his newly woven identity? The moment expanded, filled with choice and consequence. Giovanni steeled himself, aware that the coming confrontation could either shatter the fragile alliances he was forging or solidify them into something formidable. And in that charged silence, the answer loomed like a storm on the horizon. Would he confront his old alliances, those who knew him best, or would he retreat into the shadows of doubt? The next step awaited, perilous yet necessary. His destiny hinged upon how he would weave trust from past ties, framing his future and that of the innocent nun who had become his anchor. As the figure advanced, Giovanni's heart raced with anticipation. The moment had arrived to face the ghosts of his choices head-on, forcing him to confront the question he had evaded for far too long. Could he truly reconcile who he had been with who he aspired to be? As the figure stepped fully into the sanctuary's dim light, Giovanni's heart plunged deeper into unease. The familiar face was Marco's brother, Luca, one of the few he had trusted during his tumultuous rise through their world. But his presence heralded the ghosts of past loyalties and unbridled chaos, threatening the delicate peace Giovanni sought to cultivate. Luca's reputation preceded him, a mix of charm and danger that could easily sway loyalties in unpredictable ways. Giovanni, Luca greeted, his voice smooth yet laden with implication. Heard you've stepped back into the game. Quite the resurrection you've got brewing. Giovanni held his ground, battling the instinct to retreat. I'm not here for games, Luca. This is serious. I don't have time for your manipulations. Luca chuckled, a sound devoid of true amusement. Serious? Isn't that a bit rich coming from you? You were bred for chaos, my friend. You know that better than anyone. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, exuding an air of casual authority. The words struck like daggers. Memories flashed through Giovanni's mind, the nights of reckless abandon, the thrill of power, the weight of betrayal. Yet he had transformed. Was this audience with Luca a test of resolve? A chance to turn his back on the man he used to be? Loyalty isn't given lightly anymore, Giovanni replied, striving to sound firm. I'm doing this for more than just myself. Sister Elena is involved now. Luca's eyes narrowed with interest. The nun? You've always had a soft spot, haven't you? That one farewell in the world you're stepping back into. Frustration tinged Giovanni's voice. I'm not afraid of judgment. Trust this Sister Elena is off limits to your games. I'm here to deal with the ratios. They're a threat to everything I care about. Is that what you really believe? Luca advanced, dropping the teasing tone. Or is it about reconciling with your past? You're at a crossroads, Giovanni. Embrace who you were, or risk losing everything you've built. Giovanni wrestled with that duality. The man he used to be seemed a distant echo now, but flashes of old alliances beckoned like a siren's call. Could he outsmart them, exploit their self-interests without getting drawn back into the abyss? His inner conflict raged, accentuated by the realization that Luca was right. The balance he sought was precarious. Let us say I entertain your offer, Giovanni retorted, shaking off doubt. What do you propose? Come back to the fold, if only for a moment. Use your influence to rally my crew. We'll create a buffer between you and the ratios. Those old loyalties hold weight more than you realize. Giovanni felt the pull of temptation, a sinister allure draped in familiarity. Yet, the weight of Sister Elena's trust anchored him. he couldn't fail her. He wouldn't jeopardize the moral compass he had begun to forge anew. I'm not reviving old habits. I've changed, Luca. The chilling smile on Luca's face did nothing to dispel the unease clenching Giovanni's stomach. Change is merely an illusion, my friend. You can't escape whom you really are, and you will need us if you wish to take down the ratios. Your path is paved with enmity and betrayal. Don't forget it. As Luca's words settled like ash in the sanctuary, Giovanni felt the space close in around them. Time seemed to stretch, choices felt suffocating. Undoubtedly, he would need muscle and insight to dismantle the ratios, but he could not traverse this road with Luca's shadow looming overhead. What is the plan? Giovanni demanded, defiance layered over uncertainty. Play the game, exploit fear, gather your crew, relight those flames. You're the one they'll follow if you can show them you're capable. Only then can we confront the ratios together. In that fleeting moment, Giovanni glimpsed a fractured reflection of himself in Luca's eyes, a man caught between the allure of power and the responsibility to safeguard those he had come to cherish. Could he rally the remnants of his past without succumbing to their darkness? Could he remain the leader that Sister Elena believed him to be? The decision loomed larger than life itself. He had to navigate these treacherous waters carefully, and that meant confronting the man who had always pulled at the strings of the chaos within him. As the weight of betrayal and possibility hung in the air, Giovanni took a deep breath, steeling himself for the inevitable plunge into the past he had tried so hard to leave behind. With one foot in darkness and the other desperately seeking light, he prepared to take the next step. Would Luca's proposal lead to a renewed purpose, or would it spiral him back into shadow? Giovanni stood frozen, the air thick with the magnetism of Luca's presence. In that moment, he felt the churning inside his mind, the push and pull of the man he used to be and the leader he aspired to become. The sanctuary felt less like a place of refuge and more like a battleground for his conflicting identities. Reverberations of camaraderie and competition danced around them. Think about it, Luca continued, a sly glimmer in his eyes. Aligning yourself with us isn't just a step back, it's a strategic move. You call the shots, redirect the chaos under your command. You become the puppet master, not the puppet. Flashes of the past began to swirl in his imagination. He remembered when the thrill of orchestrating chaos had taken precedence over moral judgments. Now, the mere proposal of wielding that power again ignited a flicker of temptation within him. Could he navigate this path without losing his grip on who he had become? Puppet master, you say? Giovanni mused, though the reply came out clipped, laden with skepticism. At what cost, Luca? My soul? Sister Elena believes I'm on a different path. Belief is a flimsy armor in this world, Luca replied, stepping closer. The ratios thrive on blood and betrayal. They'll cut you down before the dawn if you hesitate. Rally your former allies. Show them you've returned, more dangerous than before. If you do this, you will have power and respect under your terms. Power. The allure of it wrapped around him like a vice. Giovanni grappled with it, yearning for respect yet terrified of spiraling back into the chaos he had fought to escape. But the reality of threat loomed larger. Sister Elena's support and faith were an anchor, the last bastion of his renewed purpose. Gathering allies, Giovanni said slowly, weighing the phrase carefully. And what do you expect me to promise in return? Loyalty that you already know is a myth in our world? Not loyalty, Luca countered smoothly. Influence. Access. Those outside aren't the only ones who need convincing. Your old crew needs to see what you can bring to the table. If they respect you, they'll follow you. If they don't, you lose not just your title, but perhaps everything. Cursing the insidious truth in Luca's statement, Giovanni began to formulate a plan, a way to navigate the treachery he would have to engage in. He would need to tread with caution, employ calculated interactions, and always remain one step ahead. This wasn't merely about confronting the ratios. It was about survival. I'll consider it, but on my terms, he declared, channeling conviction into his voice. First, I want a meeting with the crews. They respect history. They need to see I'm not backing down. If I'm to stir the embers of their loyalty, It must be on solid ground, not built on fear. Luca's grin broadened, revealing a hint of admiration. Now that's the Giovanni I remember. Just remember, the more you lead, the more their eyes will be on you. They'll test your resolve, probe your weaknesses. Let them try, Giovanni shot back, confidence restoring a long familiar adrenaline rush. I have a purpose here, and not just for me. It's about protecting what Sister Elena entrusted me with. With a newfound determination boiling in his chest, Giovanni turned away from Luca, ushering his mind into the practicalities of assembling his former crew. He had a mission and allies to muster. The layers of his past would serve him this time not as shackles, but as instruments of power. As he strategized next steps, unease snaked up his spine. For every ally he planned to garner, the risk of betrayal loomed. The rat race remained ever present. Was this genuinely his movement forward, or a step deeper into a quagmire of moral ambiguity? Then a realization struck, coursing through him like electricity. His determination had shifted. Now, it wasn't just about outsmarting the ratios. It was about leading with integrity, being a beacon against the darkness he himself had danced with before. Giovanni's pulse quickened with clarity. He would not hide in shadows but rise above them, not merely to challenge the ratios but to forge a new path. But how would he hold together his emerging coalition and summon the strength to confront an adversary that had thrown him into chaos before? The echo of footsteps faded as he left the sanctuary, resolved yet acutely aware that a storm was brewing, one that could either exalt him or force him to reckon with the very demons he had fought to escape. The question remained, would he stand firm against the tide of betrayal, or would he buckle, risking everything once again? Giovanni stepped into the dusk-tinted streets, the weight of his resolve mingling with the cool evening air. He was no longer merely acting on impulse. Every action now had to be a reflection of the leader he aspired to embody. The earlier uncertainty he'd felt morphed into a thin layer of confidence that flickered as he moved. Each footfall echoed purpose, a rhythm reminding him of the path he had chosen. His first stop would be the old haunt, the dimly lit bar where the remnants of his past still congregated. It was a place thick with memories, previous alliances forged and broken, laughter only to be hushed by impending violence. He had once thrived in that chaos, dictating the flow of the night's events with a deft hand. Now, stepping back inside, the air felt charged as if the walls themselves held their breath, awaiting his entry. He scanned the familiar faces, all weather-worn and hardened by the pulse of street life. Giovanni's heart raced, each stare pierced him anew. Were they curious? Skeptical? He needed to convey strength without resorting to intimidation, to inspire loyalty from men who had long since learned to reconsider their allegiances. He approached the bar, his gaze locking onto Marco, a former acquaintance, a man who held sway over many in this city. Got a moment? Giovanni asked, his voice steady but layered with an underlying tension. Marco turned, his brow arching with intrigue. Look who's back from the shadows. What's your game, Giovanni? I'm not here to play, he said, the firmness of his conviction grounding him. I want to discuss the state of our people. The words tasted foreign even on his tongue, but they were unyielding. He could no longer define his mission through the fog of self-interest. The ratios are on the move, he continued, lowering his voice as he catapulted straight to the heart of the matter. Their reach spreads deeper, and I can't stand idle while lives are at stake. An unsettling silence enveloped them, Marco's expression shifting from amused skepticism to contemplative seriousness. The flicker of doubt surged through Giovanni. Would his attempt to awaken their sense of duty fall flat? People don't just switch allegiances, Giovanni. You've been out for a while, Marco replied, taking a sip from his glass but maintaining eye contact. Giovanni recognized the challenge hidden in Marco's words, an unspoken test of his resolve. I'm not asking for loyalty based on fear, Giovanni interjected, feeling a patch of anger swell within him. If anything, I want to earn respect not just for who I've been but for who I choose to be. The honesty of his declaration echoed off the barroom walls, breathing life into the stagnant air. As Marco pondered his response, Giovanni mentally dissected every nuance of the conversation. He needed to identify the anchor points, those shared interests, those past grudges bound by loyalty. This was no longer about reclaiming his former life but about redefining it alongside those he once led. After a fraught pause, Marco smirked in acknowledgement. "All right, I'll entertain your notion for now. How do you propose we rally the others?" Giovanni felt a rush of adrenaline at the prospect. "A meeting. Bring them together. Remind them what we're fighting for, and show them the strength of our unity." The idea hung in the air, brimming with potential. Yet at the edge of that prospect lingered latent fear. What if they still viewed him through the lens of their past? As he departed the bar, Giovanni rode the wave of fervor and anxiety, realizing that the murmurs of betrayal that haunted him were not just external threats, but internal doubts. His resolve would not merely be tested by others but by himself as well. His past mistakes and the murky motivations that once governed his choices. He reached for his phone, fingers hovering over the screen. His plan needed to materialize, and quickly. Yet as he held it, a rogue thought struck him. What if he were to reach out to Sister Elena? Could her faith in him be the catalyst for the change he sought? A subtle blend of turmoil and clarity tugged at him, a visceral call to navigate uncharted waters. Would he trust her unwavering belief to guide him through the labyrinth of chaos that lay ahead? The unanswerable question loomed large, pulling at the very core of his being, forcing him to grapple with the essence of transformation. It compelled him forward, an invitation wrapped in uncertainty, the kind of call that could alter the course of his quest. A chill swept through him as he left the bar behind. It was one thing to face external threats, but confronting the profound truth of who he was and who he wished to become carried more weight than any alliance or enemy could. With resolve igniting the fire in his belly, he dialed Sister Elena's number. Would she welcome the man he had embodied or see only the roles he had played before? The first ring echoed, drowning in the tumult of unanswered questions. Could her unwavering faith be the reinvigoration he needed, or was he simply walking back into the depths of his own making? The moment of truth was inching closer, yet Giovanni didn't realize the real trial awaited just beyond that call. His old self whispering reminders of the danger, the betrayal, and the chaos that never truly disappeared. As the line connected, one thought loomed above all others. Who would he have to become to emerge unscathed from the storms of his own making? The moment Sister Elena's voice broke through the static, Giovanni felt a weight lift. "Hello?" she said, a warmth in her tone that reached him even through the electronic distance. "Sister Elena, it's Giovanni," he replied, the connection grounding him momentarily amid the swirling thoughts. There was no hesitation in her response, just a gentle encouragement. "How lovely to hear from you. Is everything all right?" Her sincerity burrowed deep, challenging the walls Giovanni had built around himself. I'm trying to get back on track," he confessed, vulnerability creeping into his voice. "I need your help." Even through the phone, he could envision her brow furrowing in concern. "What kind of help?" "You know I'm here for you." What did he truly need? The clarity to understand his intentions felt elusive. "I want to bring people together, to fight back against something that threatens them all. But I'm struggling to reconnect with those I once ran with. My past looms so large." "Your strength lies in confronting that past, Giovanni," she urged. "You can't change what has happened, but you can shape what comes next. You must show them you're different now." The truth of her words reverberated within him. He had to embrace the very fabric of his transformation rather than hide from it. "I want to organize a meeting," he continued, the conviction in his voice climbing with each word. "To remind them what unity means. Trust is a delicate thing," Sister Elena cautioned, her voice firm yet compassionate. "You'll have to prove you're not the same man anymore. It won't be easy." "Nothing worth having ever is," he replied, a newfound steely resolve coiling within him. His fears began to intertwine with determination. He needed to carve a new path, not only for others but for himself. Agitation thrummed beneath his skin, feeding a fire that had grown dormant for too long. "What about you?" she pressed gently. "How do you feel about taking this step? Are you ready to confront your previous life?" In that moment, Giovanni realized this wasn't merely about the alliances he sought to restore but also about embracing the vulnerability of personal redemption. The man he wanted to become would require patience and humility, two traits he had overlooked in his past. I want to show them I've changed not just for them but for me as well, he declared. The conversation flowed, and as Sister Elena guided him through his thoughts, Giovanni felt as though she was peeling back layers of his self-doubt. Each revelation pried loose fragments of his once fragmented soul, knitting him closer to an emerging sense of purpose. I'll come, she said, offering her support. I will help you prepare. You have a strong vision, Giovanni, but don't forget about your own truth. You must live it fully. After they ended the call, Giovanni lowered his phone, taking a breath that filled his lungs with clarity. He no longer felt he was on a precipice. Instead, the ground beneath him was steady now, the weight of anticipation transformed into palpable motivation. He would gather his former allies and show them, not just tell them who he had become. But shadows still lingered in his mind. What if the past was too heavy to truly rise above? Would doubt still find a home among those who had once cast him aside? Fear wrapped around his resolve like a vice, whispering caution for the journey ahead. As he prepared for the impending meeting, Giovanni sensed that this transformation would not be complete just by declaring intentions. He would have to confront not only the men he once led but also face himself squarely, challenge the instincts that dragged him back into chaos. Renouncing the allure of old power dynamics, he moved through the city streets, mentally sketching the contours of his plan for the meeting. Organizing his thoughts became an act of defiance against the specters of his past life. Each step he took felt like an act of reclamation, a declaration of intent. Yet, doubt echoed alongside his resolve, a lingering whisper that questioned whether he could change the opinions of those who knew him best. With each turn, Giovanni felt the weight of that uncertainty against the fire of his burgeoning conviction. He reached a crossroads, the culmination of his past life converging with the potential path ahead. What if the meeting proved disastrous? What if they rejected everything he sought to embody? The internal struggle ignited a paradoxical resolve within him. It was time to carve a new legend from the ashes of his past. The essence of leadership was engagement, after all, and the raw power of vulnerability could become his greatest weapon. But would he have the strength to maintain his newfound clarity when confronted by familiar faces filled with skepticism and old grudges? As the sun dipped below the horizon, Giovanni felt the swirling winds of fate cascading around him. The decision to move forward was etched in the essence of who he was becoming. The moment had arrived to embrace the uncertainty and step boldly into his future, a future defined as much by confrontation as by unity. Tension snapped sharply in the air as the distant sounds of his old life reverberated off the asphalt streets around him. Would he rise or fall when faced with the truths of those he once led? Sensing a storm brewing within, Giovanni vowed to meet it head-on, unaware that the real confrontation began not with others but with his own self. Giovanni stood in the dimly lit bar that had once been a temple of chaos and danger. Now, it felt strangely comforting as memories of laughter, broken promises, and power played through his mind like an old film reel. The air was thick with anticipation, and he was ready to take the first step toward redemption. He surveyed the room, searching for familiar faces, men who had once been his brothers in arms, warriors in a ruthless game of survival. In their eyes, he saw skepticism, curiosity, and even fear. But it was a mix of emotions he could work with. Today, he was not the same man who had once wielded intimidation like a weapon. He was a man seeking to reclaim something greater: integrity, unity, purpose. "Listen up," Giovanni called, raising his voice above the murmurs. "I'm not here to play games. The ratios are coming for us, and we need to unite. We've fought together before, but it's time to fight for something worthwhile: our families, our lives, our future." The tension in the room shifted, eyes widened, questions loomed, but he pressed on. "I've been absent too long, but I've changed. I want to bring us all back together to reorder the chaos we have allowed to take over our lives." In that moment, it felt like a spell had been cast, and time hung silently in the air as if holding its breath. One voice finally broke the stillness, a face he recognized from nights of glory and blood: "Marco. You think they'll listen to you? You think we can go back?" "Why not?" Giovanni replied, an ember of challenge igniting in him. Fear may have worked in the past, but I'm asking for respect now. We've all lost too much. What are we fighting for if not each other? If you give me your trust, together we can dismantle the ratios piece by piece. Whispers jumped from table to table, uncertainty mixed with a flicker of hope. Giovanni stepped closer, his gait steady, his voice sharp. You all know what they're capable of. This is our chance to wrest control back. To show everyone that we've evolved and that we can take down these vultures circling over our lives. Encouragement from Marco rallied a few men, their expressions shifting from apprehension to reluctant agreement. Giovanni felt tentacles of hope spark within him, wrapping him like a warm blanket. But doubt lingered, nagging away at the fringes. What if his old existence eclipsed this fragile opportunity? Let us set a plan, then, Marco suggested, the hesitant nodding around the room reinforcing a collective yearning for empowerment. This meeting could be a turning point, a renaissance for their fractured unity. As they began to strategize, Giovanni's thoughts flickered to Sister Elena, the lighthouse he had longed for in the stormy sea of his past. Each plan shared felt like a step closer to proving not only to others but to himself that he could have a future rooted in integrity. Later that evening, as Giovanni exited the bar, triumph surged through him. They had agreed to meet again, each man promising to bring supporters. He lingered, absorbing the atmosphere of progress, the kind that sprouted from vulnerability and honesty. With every heartbeat, he felt the weight of his past recede just a little more. Standing outside, Giovanni inhaled deeply, allowing the night air to clear his thoughts. He had one last call to make. It was time to share this burgeoning vision with Sister Elena. For months, her unwavering faith had been a guiding light. She deserved to know what he was cultivating. With his heart pounding, he dialed her number once again. Giovanni? Sister Elena answered, her voice radiating warmth and familiarity. Hey, it's me. The meeting went well, he announced, pride bleeding into his tone. I think we can make something happen. I spoke to Marco and a few others. They're willing to rally together against the ratios. You're building something new, aren't you? She asked softly. Giovanni could hardly believe how easily the sincerity seeped into her words. I am, sister, he affirmed, allowing himself a breath of relief. This isn't just about me anymore. This is about family, safety, community, things we shattered long ago. I want to protect what is pure, and that starts with us. Then begin to meet with intention, she replied, her voice a melodic key that unlocked hidden chambers within him. You will face many challenges, but you must remain steadfast. Choose the right path, Giovanni. Let love and conviction steer you forward. The conversation anchored him, solidifying his growing resolve. Standing in the quiet of the night, he realized the light within him had outshone the darkness of his past. Encouragement from Sister Elena provided a vital foundation he had desperately searched for, belief in himself. As days turned into weeks, Giovanni immersed himself in this new journey, aligning with those who had once fought beside him. Together, they strategized and prepared, envisioning a united front against the impending chaos. The remnants of his old life no longer felt like chains. Rather, they formed a network, a structure that would help protect the ones who mattered the most. Finally, the day arrived when they confronted the ratios, and Giovanni stood at the forefront. Surrounded by allies now leaning on trust, he felt surges of historic loyalty mixing with unyielding strength. Together, they battled not just to reclaim territory but to redefine who they were as individuals. In the ache of conflict and the sweat of hard-won victory, Giovanni discovered a deeper truth. The greatest achievement was not the dismantling of enemies, but the forging of bonds that could outlast the shadows. Emerging from chaos, he had conquered not only a gang but the internal struggles that had once held him captive. Giovanni Mancini was no longer just a mobster. He was a man defined by clarity, purpose, and love, a man embracing redemption in full bloom, now confident and at peace with the complexity of his past. It was the culmination of years of tumult, compounded by relentless struggle. But he was flourishing, and he knew he had finally achieved a life worth living. Now, the horizon cast a brilliant light over the alley he had once roamed with despair, showing paths layered with hope. If you've enjoyed this transformational journey as much as Giovanni's remarkable evolution, you need to subscribe now to witness even more exclusive emotional stories without missing a beat. Leave a like now to help fuel our amazing algorithm and spread such inspiring narratives. Comment below, sharing your reactions and theories about Giovanni's future. Let us dive into this together. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and embrace their own transformations. Your support means everything.